Yes, with an F1 visa, you can work for the university. And when you come to a really large university like Mason, you will find so many different opportunities for student work.
So how about the I-20, which is what students use to secure their student visas at their home embassies? Does George Mason give the I-20? Do you issue it? What's the process with that?
Yeah. So what happens is after you receive an admissions letter from us, I send you over to our Office of International Programs and Services and connect you with somebody who we call a DSO, Designated School Official. They're going to ask you to submit a few papers, including demonstration of funding, any scholarships that the university has offered you, anything else that you would like to send, and then they'll put together an I-20 for you. They'll send the I-20 to you, and then you will schedule an interview with a U.S. embassy or a U.S. consulate near you. You can go to other countries for that interview, but it is better if you can get it scheduled in your home country, of course. The tricky thing right now is that interview is really going to determine whether or not you're going to receive an offer. The university is going to do everything in its power to support you, no matter what university you go to. They're going to do everything in their power to support you to get the offer to come to their university. If we're willing to admit you, we're willing to support you. But it's not the university's decision. It's that embassy officer who interviews you. It's their decision. And that interview is going to be maybe 10 minutes long. It's going to be really short. It's going to be very direct. And my guess is the embassy person's not going to be the most polite person you've ever met in your life. So how can you prepare for it? Well, one thing is any person who's admitted you to a university, they'll have gone through these interviews multiple times, and I'm sure they'll be willing to practice with you. I practice interviews with students all the time, so you can kind of get a sense of what those questions are like. Second thing is, come in organized. Come in with all of your documents in a nice clean folder with paper clips on them so they can see at any point in time, here's my admissions letter, here's my scholarship letter, here's my funding. Think about your funding as well. If your funding looks weird for some reason, for example, let's say 3 months ago, your bank account only had $20,000 and all of a sudden it has $80,000. Those are the kinds of things that look weird to immigration people. So make sure that your bank account looks consistent month over month. That's something that is, I think, really important. Look for areas that just would look strange to you if you were in that interviewer's place, and make sure that you can explain why something looks weird. And better yet, make sure it doesn't look weird at all.
But what are some of those things that looks weird? What should, because this is an area that a lot of students struggle with. They come back to us. I was denied at the embassy, to the extent that now Ghanaian students are going to Côte d'Ivoire. Some are going to South Africa. I know even one student who went to Eswatini because there's a big, kind of backlog at the U.S. embassy. The embassy in Accra tells us that they've reduced the backlog, but people are still reporting this kind of backlog. So what are the weird things? Give us like what students should know, what they should look out for, what questions, how their composure. You have a lot of experience in this area.
Basically, if you're an embassy person, the truth is what they want to know is that you are coming here to study. The study makes sense. You can afford to study. And when you're done, you're going to go back to your home country. That is what they want to know. So when you're telling your story, you want to make sure that you can actually show that you can afford to study. So if you're sponsoring yourself, you want to make sure that your bank account shows how much money is coming in from your job every month. And that money is consistent month over month. Any time where because you're getting money from your brother-in-law or something like that to fund your study. So he transferred money to your account. So you have less money than is required for most of the year, but suddenly you get a huge influx because your brother-in-law decided to support you. Well, from the embassy's perspective, they're looking at that and going, well, what's to stop you from just giving that money back to your brother-in-law after it's done? How do I know that this money is actually yours? So make sure that your account information looks consistent. If you have a job already in Ghana, if you can get a letter of support from your job that says something like, we're going to provide some amount of support and a leave of absence for this person so they can pursue their education. And we expect this person to come back in 1 year's time to continue work for us because we're making this investment in them. Those are things that the embassy will really look for. Making sure that you can show that you have property, a car, a house, something like that, to show that you have ties to your home country. Those are things that are very valuable to the embassy person. So as long as you can answer the embassy person's questions, those big questions that I mentioned, then you have a really good shot. But remember that a USCIS representative or an embassy representative is never going to get in trouble for telling a student no. The danger they have is when they tell the wrong student yes. So it's up to you to convince them that you are a safe person to say yes to.
Is there any will it be flagged? Should you be bothered? Say if you have an undergrad in another program and you've applied to maybe Mason in another program, but it's not related at all. Does that flag at the embassy with your visa interview? Is there a problem? How should you handle a question like that?
So if you've applied to multiple programs that look really different, that is one thing that can cause problems for you during your interview. So it's a good idea to make sure that you already know what you want when you start applying to programs. And that you are able to explain any discrepancies. So having a good story, if you transition from having been accepted to one program to a completely different program, make sure that you can explain why you switched programs very clearly. That's really, really important.
That's Mason, for instance, if the person applies to George Mason, can you do anything for the students if they are denied the visa? The student visa at the embassy? Is there a process where the school can appeal?
It's really limited because the university really doesn't have any say or power at all in these situations. There are some schools that may tell you that they have some connections. Really, the only thing that a university can do is they can write a letter of support to the embassy directly. Now, this is something that I've done specifically for some students in Ghana. I've done it for students from Iran as well, because Iran has a very high denial rate for us as well because of the political conflicts. In general, when I write those letters of support on behalf of students, I ask the student to let me know their date of denial, let me know the date of their new interview, and then I will send a letter that will arrive via email to that embassy office about 2 weeks prior to that interview. And then I will give the student a copy so they can take it into their interview, basically explaining, here's why I think the denial the first time was wrong. Our success rate when we do this is about 50-50. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. If USCIS or the embassy sees something that they think is dangerous, they're going to assume that the university doesn't have enough knowledge of this particular student to make a claim that will convince them otherwise. So it is really best as you can, if you can come in ready for that interview the first time, that gives you the best chance. The more denials you get, the harder it gets.
You initially spoke about get your stuff ready once you go for the visa interview. Can you go over again what stuff? Is it your admission letter? Is it your I-20? Go over it again.
Yeah. So first things first, wear a suit, wear nice clothes, get a haircut, come in looking like you're the nicest, most handsome person this interviewer's ever seen. I-20, your funding documents, any documentation you want to show that shows you have ties to your home country. So things like a housing deed, a car registration, any sort of family ties, like letters of support from family, a letter from your company that shows that they support you and you'll have a job upon returning. Anything that shows that you have enough money to do this program, here's why you're doing this program, and here's what you're going to do in your home country after the program is done.
Well, my last question to you, why should anybody come to Mason?
We were an offshoot of the University of Virginia. Okay. And what we are most known for is innovation. We are not bound by tradition in the same way these old universities are. In general, if you have creativity and you have drive and you have passion, this is the school for you. We are more diverse in terms of ethnicity, in terms of religious culture, in terms of language than any other university in the state of Virginia. We want people with different perspectives here because we think if everybody brings a different perspective, we all learn something. So I firmly believe, and I grew up about 15 minutes outside of Mason. So if you hear the passion in my voice, please believe it's because I love this school more than I've ever loved a school ever in my life. I firmly believe that Mason's cause is that of bringing different perspectives from the world together. And it's why I do international education. It's why I work for Mason. I wouldn't want to work for a different university. And I think if you find a tie to this university, there's not another university you'll want to go to.
That's really nice. Can you, I know that was my last question, but can you tell me the number of students, international students you have? Do you know the number of the population?
So it overall at Mason across programs, I don't know exactly. I think it's like 8,000, which is a lot.
Is that
but for my programs in particular, we had this past year, we had 383 students. Of those, 260 were internationally trained. And of those, I think we ended up having about 42 who studied on campus with F1 visas. And so that's about the amount that we have coming on campus to us every year. But we have students from throughout the world every year studying in our online program. So whether you want to study with us online or on campus, we give you the same career services. You'll make the same connections. We're a much smaller law school than, say, George Washington. So you have more chances to meet professors, meet faculty, meet students. We'd love to talk with you.
Okay. So thank you so much. Thank you. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you for inviting me. This was really fun.
Thank you.
All right. I'll see you later.
Okay. Bye.